Welcome to our new series all about selling to retail chains. So, you ever wonder what the single biggest key to success is? Here's a hint. It's not your price, and it's not even just about your product. It's about getting inside the mind of the retail buyer. Okay, let's dive in and really figure out how they think.
This is the question that drives so many fantastic producers and suppliers completely crazy. You've got an amazing product, you know the quality is top-notch, but your emails get ignored. Your calls just don't get returned. Why is it so hard to even get a foot in the door with a major retailer?
Well, the answer is actually a lot simpler than you might think. It's because you're starting the conversation from the wrong place. See, most suppliers lead with their product and, of course, their price. But a professional buyer, they're thinking about something else entirely: risk. Their main job, every single day, is to minimize it.
To really get this, we first have to bust a huge myth about what a buyer actually does. And trust me, it's probably not what you're imagining. So, the common myth is that a buyer is just a purchaser, right? Someone whose only job is to negotiate the lowest possible price. But honestly, that's just a tiny part of their job. In reality, a modern retail buyer is a strategic category manager.
So what does that really mean? Well, think of them as the CEO of a mini business right there inside the supermarket. They don't just buy tomatoes. No, they're responsible for the entire tomato category's success, from sales and profit margins to how fast those products fly off the shelves. Every single operational headache, every unsold item, it all lands right on their desk.
Right, so to understand their decisions, you've got to shift your perspective. Stop thinking about your farm or your warehouse for a second and start looking at the one place that defines their success or their failure: the supermarket shelf.
A buyer's performance isn't measured on how cheaply they bought some apples last week. It's measured on the total sales of their entire category. It's about making sure that the shelf is never empty. That's like the cardinal sin in retail. And it's all about keeping customer complaints and product losses to an absolute minimum.
This cycle right here, this shows their entire world in one picture. It all starts with a strategy to hit those sales goals. But that strategy lives or dies right there on the shelf, which has to be perfectly stocked for the customer. And the final result? It's simple. Did they hit their targets with the fewest problems possible? So a new supplier isn't just a price point. You're a piece of this whole cycle. The real question a buyer is asking is, do you help this cycle run smoothly, or are you going to cause problems?
So, if it's not just about price, what is it really about? Let's break down a buyer's top 5 priorities. Think of these as the absolute pillars of trust that every successful partnership is built on:
Continuity, quality, freshness, safety, and communication. You notice a pattern here? They are all risk reducers. Continuity of supply gets rid of the risk of empty shelves. Consistent quality eliminates the risk of customer complaints. Safety and certifications, that avoids the risk of a brand-damaging scandal. They all answer the buyer's unspoken question: can you deliver what I need every single time without giving me a headache? That kind of predictability is worth way more than a few cents off the price.
And don't for a second underestimate how seriously they take this. This quote from a senior buyer at Lidl, it just says it all. This isn't just selling fruit, it's like being a critical component in a high-performance machine. The standards are absolute because the buyer and the retail brand itself are the ones on the line with the final customer. And that Mercedes standard, it's not just talk. Here's a perfect, real-world example of what that means. Top retailers don't just ask if you meet the legal standards, they demand that you go way beyond them. Forcing pesticide residues to be at just 1/3 of the legal limit is a classic example. This isn't about the law, it's about building extra safety buffers into their supply chain. It's proactive risk management, plain and simple.
Okay, now that we know what buyers want, it's just as important to understand what they absolutely don't want. Let's look at the common mistakes that will get your offer thrown in the trash, the things that end the conversation before it even really gets started.
Starting with price is mistake number 1. Big red flag. Promising the world without any proof to back it up is another huge one. But the biggest deal breakers, they're all about how you handle problems. Blaming your neighbor for pesticide drift or just going silent when a shipment is late. These things don't just create a problem, they create chaos. And in that moment, you stop being a potential partner and you become their single biggest risk. So what's the solution? How do you actually break through all this? Well, you have to fundamentally change your approach. You need to stop pitching a product and start positioning yourself as a strategic partner.
This table just lays it out perfectly. A price-focused supplier forces the buyer to constantly verify, to check, to worry. They literally create more work and more risk for them. A partner supplier, on the other hand, delivers peace of mind. They communicate proactively, they have their documents in order, and they offer solutions, not excuses. They make the buyer's job easier and their category more stable. And that is what earns you a long-term contract.
So there you have it. You now have the key. You understand how a retail buyer thinks and what they truly expect. So the next step is to put all this knowledge into action and approach them not as just another seller, but as a valuable partner.
And you're going to have the perfect chance to do just that. With this understanding of what a retail buyer really expects, you will be able to meet buyers responsible for fruit, vegetable, and flower purchasing from Poland and CEE countries on September 24, 2026, during the Fresh Market 2026 B2B Meeting and Trade Show held at MCC Mazurkas in Warsaw. If you want to talk to buyers as a partner, not as just another supplier with a price list, prepare yourself and join us. All the details are available at freshmarket.eu.
Thanks for joining us for this one. Remember, start thinking like a partner and you'll start winning those contracts. We'll see you in the next part of our series.